Mike here again, here to demonstrate the Lesson 5 Challenge project. So the first thing we're going to do is bring up Visual Studio 2013. We're going to click New Project. And in the challenge, you were asked to basically create a simple app that uses variables to add two numbers and display the contents of those variables as well as the result to the console window. So we know we're going to do a console app. I'll click console. Now I'm not going to worry about the naming since we're just doing this project and I'm not going to save it, so I want to just demonstrate it to you. Let me hit OK. And once we get our code window here, we're going to open up the braces under the static void main function. And first thing we need to do in order to store some values, we need to create variables for that. And since we're storing numbers, whole numbers, we're going to define some integers. So I'll define int by typing the variable type int num1 comma num2, and then we need to declare a variable, we'll call it answer, to actually hold the result of when we add num1 and num2 together. Now we need to do some assignment of some values to these variables, so let's type num1 equals 20 and num2 equals 25. Now next we'll need to calculate the sum of num1 and num2, so we'll type in answer equals and num1 plus, using that addition operator, num2 semicolon. Okay, so that stores the answer for us, and or the result of num1 and num2 in answer. And now we'll need to display that to the console window. So you remember we had a console object that we used, and so we're going to use console.writeLine. We'll say num1 equals num1. So we want to display the contents of the num1 and num2 variables before we actually show the result, so that we can, looking at it on screen, see the values and then figure it up in our head and make sure the program calculated everything correctly. So do the same for num2. And then we need to write out the result, which is our answer variable. Answer equals answer. Now I'm going to go ahead and just add a title, so we get a title that shows up above that information. I'm going to go ahead and call this VS2013 Lesson 5 Challenge Project. And the other thing we'll do, now as you know, when we do a console app, anytime we're just writing stuff out, there's really nothing that's stopping, waiting for user input, or something that would wait for a response to pause or halt the program. So there's a new method that I'm going to introduce that's part of the console object, and it's called read key. What read key will do is wait for any key on the keyboard to be pressed before continuing. So that'll help pause the program and allow you to see the results of what you're writing to the console window before it actually exits. So we're going to go ahead and add that. And we can hit F5. That'll save and build. And as you can see, got our title, our num1 equals 20, num2 equals 25, answer equals 45. We know that adds up right. Now, one thing I want to introduce as well is an object called environment. It comes in handy when you're dealing with strings, or when you're combining strings together, called concatenation, and you want to be able to format the string, or force a string to go down to the next line instead of using the right line, for example, to do that. But there's another character or an object called environment, and it has a property called newLine, and basically you can concatenate that to the end of a string, and that'll add an additional line feed or carriage turn line feed to the string, so that when it right line executes, instead of just going down one line, it'll go down a second line. So we'll hit F5 so you can see how that worked. And you can see it separated up here. Put an extra space to make it easier to read. So that comes in handy. I'm sure you'll use it in your programs. If you don't necessarily need it, that's fine. But I did want to introduce that because it is something I've used quite often for formatting. So hope to see y'all in lesson 6. Until then, take care.